Would you look at that? The Utah Jazz. They flopped in the playoffs yet again. The Utah Jazz have been a massive laughingstock in the NBA community over the past few seasons, and it's not for the reason that you would think. They make it to the playoffs consistently. However, they're a laughingstock because of the way they go out. And after another horrible playoff exit, I think it's time that the Jazz hit the reset button. Now, before we get started, hit that like button if you enjoyed, as it really helps out the channel. And also make sure to subscribe if you guys are new and you guys enjoy this type of content, so you don't miss out on any new videos like this. Plus, I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers, and once I reach my goal, I am finally gonna do a face reveal. But with that being said, let's go ahead and let's get this video started. Now, before I go into my reasons as to why I do believe the Jazz should blow things up, I do want to go over a brief timeline of Utah's playoff failures, and that starts in the 2019-20 season. They were the 6th seed up against the Denver Nuggets, and the Nuggets were favorites to win that series. However, Utah actually jumped out to a 3-1 lead versus Denver. However, they would proceed to blow that 3-1 lead, and the entire NBA community was on their ass for it, and rightfully so. They were one win away from upsetting them and, going to the second round. However, the Utah Jazz, they blew it, and they fumbled the bag, to say the least. Then there's the 2021 season. The Utah Jazz were the 1 seed heading in, in the Western Conference that year. They also had the best record in the regular season that year as well. So it's safe to say that a lot of people, they had lofty expectations for the Utah Jazz. They beat the Grizzlies in the first round. Then they faced the Kawhi Leonard-led Clippers. Well, Kawhi Leonard actually, he missed the last 2 games of that series because he suffered a torn ACL. And it was the Utah Jazz's, opportunity to really win that series. However, the Clippers ended up beating the Utah Jazz, and this was just as bad, if not worse, than the playoff exit last year, as this team had super lofty expectations, and they lost in the second round to a team without their best player, and a team that they really should have beat. And then there's this year. In the first few months of the season, the Utah Jazz were having another really good regular season. However, in the second half of the year, they would fall all the way to the 5 seed, and they were up against the 4-seeded Dallas Mavericks. However, Luka Doncic, he was gonna miss the first few games of the series, and many people thought that the Jazz might actually win because of that. However, Utah lost in 6 games, and it was a 3rd straight humiliating playoff exit. Now, you might be wondering why the Utah Jazz suffered 3 straight humiliating playoff exits, and let's get into why. First off, their perimeter defense, it is absolutely awful. Now, the Jazz have had a good defensive net rating over the past few years, but a large part of it is Rudy Gobert carrying them on that end of the floor. The Jazz's defensive system is to really just funnel guys into the paint and then let Rudy Gobert do the rest of the work. And now that works in the regular season. However, in the postseason, it fails a lot. And we saw it time and time, again, over these past few years in the playoffs. Well, teams, they just run out these small lineups, and, because the Jazz's perimeter defense is so bad, Rudy Gobert has to constantly, be drawn out of the paint, and, he has to help, and he really just has to do everything for them defensively, and it really just leads to the Jazz's defense being absolutely awful, and the opponent's offense being super duper good. Now, speaking of Rudy Gobert, well, let's just say that Rudy Gobert, he gets a lot of the blame, for the Jazz's playoff disappointments. Like every single time the Jazz disappoint in the playoffs, everyone points the finger at Rudy Gobert. And Rudy Gobert, it kind of rightfully so. Rudy Gobert definitely deserves some blame. For one, let's get this out of the way. He is one of the best defensive players in the entire league. However, that being said, he is not super versatile. And I mean, a lot of teams in the playoffs, they really do exploit that, as while the guy is phenomenal at protecting the rim, he's not exactly the best when it comes to defending smaller players like guards and wings, and you guys get the point. And I can't lie, he does get a little bit too much blame for the Jazz shitting the bed in the playoffs every year, which we will get into later. However, again, Rudy Gobert, he deserves quite a bit of blame. And it's not just defensively. Offensively, this guy, he's really not phenomenal. Like, sure, he's a good lob threat, and I do think part of the reason why he's not phenomenal offensively is not on him. I'll get into that later as well. But at the same time, it would be nice if he could develop like a jump shot or something. Now, speaking of, stars on this team, I want to talk about Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell, in my opinion, he does not get enough blame for Utah's playoff failures. For one, he's not really great at anything outside of scoring the ball. His playmaking has improved. I mean, I'll give him that, but at the same time, it's not like his playmaking is phenomenal. And the most disappointing thing has to be the fact that his defense is not good. This guy should be a good defender theoretically. He's undersized for a 2-guard. However, he has a strong frame, he has a long wingspan, and he's super athletic. But he's not a good defender. And I know for a fact Utah's defense would definitely be better if Donovan Mitchell would actually try and improve on that end of the floor, and if he was a good defender. In fact, sometimes he doesn't even try that much on that end of the floor, and it rubs off on the rest of the squad. And to me, that shows, bad leadership, like, you gotta lead with example. I mean, you are arguably the best player on the team, and I mean, you are the leader of the team, so lead with example. And when you don't try on defense, it's gonna rub off on everyone else. So Donovan Mitchell, man, he really does deserve quite a bit of blame in this, in the Jazz being a disaster in the playoffs. And as I hinted before, Rudy Gobert is not entirely responsible for him being average offensively. It's well known at this point that Donovan does not really pass the ball to Rudy Gobert a lot, and they kind of do have a feud. And Mitchell, he needs to get him more involved offensively, like you just gotta squash this beef, handle it like real men, and pass the ball to Rudy Gobert, man. So Donovan Mitchell, he's a guy I really had to call out. Now, with all of that out of the way, I want to get into why I do believe the Utah Jazz need to blow this thing up. First off, this team has already hit their ceiling. I think we can all agree on that. With their current roster, the Jazz are a second round exit at best. And it's super difficult for them to really get better at this point, Like, they can try and acquire another star, but A, who's gonna be available? B, how are they gonna acquire him, Like, how are they gonna, trade for that guy? And also, like, why would a star want to sign with the Utah Jazz? Like, the Utah Jazz, they are a small market, so it is like it's definitely a little bit harder for them to get star players. And because they kind of are stuck in purgatory in a way, like the Utah Jazz, like, even though everyone loves to make fun of them, and believe me, I do too, the Utah Jazz, I mean, they really are not bad enough to get a top 3 pick, but at the same time, we know they are not contenders, so, I mean, blowing it up might just be the best option at this point in time. Now, as for potential trade destinations for each Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, for Rudy Gobert, 2 teams I do have in mind are the Dallas Mavericks and Atlanta Hawks. The Dallas Mavericks, I mean, they are not good at the big man position. They've been on a really, they are going on a really magical playoff run, but they do need to improve at the 5 spot. And also, Rudy Gobert could be, help their defense even more. And as for the Atlanta Hawks, I mean, Clint Capella, he was pretty bad this past year, and the Hawks, their defense is not good. And Rudy Gobert, he can make their defense one of the best in the entire NBA. He really is that good defensively, even though he does have some issues, when it comes to his versatility. And as for Donovan Mitchell, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this one is a little bit, more confusing and a little bit less clear. But I guess 2 teams I do believe who maybe could pursue him include the New York Knicks and the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat, I mean, who knows? I don't know if they do go after him. I really don't. Again, I know this, as I said before, it was a little bit less clear, but the Miami Heat, they do need like a little bit more shot creation, and same thing with the New York Knicks, especially the Knicks. But I don't know who they would trade if they were to blow things up. You know, it could be either of them, you know, Rudy Gobert or Donovan Mitchell. I mean, I could see one of them being traded, or heck, both of them being traded. But that's all I gotta say for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. It really does mean a lot. Again, like, subscribe, do all of that stuff, and make sure to also check me out on social media. The links to my social media, they are in the description below. But without further ado, I'm out, you guys.